Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages? It is me, Eric Z. You normally see me on Cochise County Veteran-Owned Business Thursday at 5. Yes, you do. And we always got something good going on every single Thursday. But this time around, I wanted to introduce my friend John, who has put together his own show, CPR for the Soul. It is very informative, great listening, educational, and lots of good stories shared amongst him and his guest for tonight, Robert Carlson. So believe me, this is one you want to pay attention to. This is one you want to get up close, not too close, it's a video, but you want to watch. So without further ado, let's go ahead, take it over to John, and introduce you to CPR for the Soul.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Warrior Healing Center. My name is Jonathan Scheil. I am your host for the CPR for the Soul, where we talk to veterans and everybody else that has served and just listen to their stories and hear what they have to say, and maybe everybody will learn something and figure out, what the resources that the Warrior Healing Center has to offer, and just make some friends, listen to some cool stories, and we will figure out this camera situation where I'm actually going to be in the camera eventually. But right today, now, as we have it now, we were fiddling around with this for a while. So I kind of just gave up on that, but we do have our friend Bob, who is a Navy veteran, Sierra Vista local, and we're just going to talk about what he went through and during his time in the Navy, and just talk about a little bit of, about his life, and just see if you guys maybe learn something from this, and talk about our issues, and PTSD, anxiety, depression, anything, and so with that said, I'll go ahead and let Bob take it, and him and I are just going to have a nice conversation about whatever, and we'll try not to take too much of anybody's time, have it last about 30 minutes. And like I said, I promise I will figure this out a little bit better, so we're both in the camera here eventually, and hopefully that will be next time. So, all right. So, Bob.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting you too. The first time today. My name is Bob Carlson, and yes, like John said, I'm a Navy vet. I spent 3 years in active duty and 6 years in the Navy Reserves. I was assigned to the USS Mobile, LK 115, who's now been cut up into razor blades, as I understand. But it was an amphib ship. We carried 6 Mike 8 boats, and 6 Mike 6 boats and 4 Mike 8 boats. And if any of you are not familiar with the Navy, the Mike boats are the boats that carry supplies or Marines on shore, where the front ramp comes down. And the Mike 6 boats were a little smaller than the Mike 8 boats. Mike 8 boats could actually carry an M60 tank. So it was good duty. We hauled the Marines around. I was stationed out of Long Beach, California, which has since been sold. I'm not going to get into politics right now, but it's no longer with us. It was one of the bases that was closed down during the Clinton administration. And I went on 2 Westpacs, which is West Pacific cruise. Went to 8 different countries on the 2 different cruises. Had a good time. I was a radioman, and when I finally got out of the reserves, I had made RM2, which is E5.
Radio man, second class.
Yes.
Yep.
And
I was Army, but I kind of get the.
It's kind of hard to keep track of the ranks sometimes. Generally, if you go by the E's, you can understand how up or down somebody is. But yes, and one of my collateral duties on the ship was to be assigned to the salvage rescue boat, which is a Mike 6 boat, which are a lot smaller than the Mike 8s, and they bobbled around a lot. And luckily, I never got seasick, but it was quite an experience. Being a radioman, I'd have to carry the portable PRC, and I can't remember the number. It was portable radio, FM, low band, and I have to climb down the cargo nets. You watch the old John Wayne movies and see everybody climbing down the cargo nets, and it's kind of scary. And as you get down there, the boat's going up and down, and you have to time yourself to where you want to hop off the net to get in the boat. And we did have a Marine that passed away on one of the Westpacs. He had fallen from the net and got trapped between the net and the boat, one of the Mike boats, and he had come back up and they were trying to grab him, and he didn't have his life preserver on correctly, and he ended up going underwater, and they finally got him up, did CPR on him, but he died. But anyway, it was quite an experience. But I spent that time in the Navy, and in 1985, while I was in the Navy, I had an experience. We were loading a transmitter onto the ship. We had a crane that had brought a transmitter up to the main deck of the ship, actually up to the, I guess it was deck 4 is where the radio room was. The crane was bringing the radio transmitter up to the radio, the same deck the radio room was on. And there was like 5 of us holding on to the pallet that was holding on to the transmitter. It was a very heavy transmitter. And the pallet shifted, the crane, one of the cradles left or whatever, and it was getting ready to fall. And of course everybody let go except for Dummy. And man, I heard something in my back. I was holding this for a few seconds and I let it drop. And I had constant back pains ever since then. I went to medical. Of course they said, yeah, we'll give you some relaxants, and they did. And then I went to the orthopedic surgeon at the Naval Hospital, and they said, took x-rays, and they said, well, we can't operate, but you do have some problems. We can see you've had some problems with your back. Then I went to physical therapy. They were putting me on physical therapy, and it seemed to be helping a little bit. And then after that, we had to go on a Westpac, so the chief told me, my E7, told me you can't go to physical therapy anymore because we checked with medical and they said it'll be okay, you can just stay on board. We got to go on our Westpac and they will take care of you. Well, they didn't take care of me, and I had constant pains off and on. I got out of the Navy and I went to work for the Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department, and I continued to still have some problems with my back, and it kept getting worse year after year. And I had put in a claim with the VA, and they gave me a 20%. They looked at my medical records and they gave me 20%. And so every year, on and on, it kept getting worse and worse. And so finally, I kept complaining and kept putting in, and they finally got me up to 40%. And then finally, at the fire department, I said, I can't be out in the field. I mean, my back is bothering me all the time, and I was taking sick leave, and I was just not doing a good job. They put me into dispatch, so I ended up retiring after 25 years with the fire department as the assistant division chief in the communications center. So I worked my way up there, but I continued to have flare-ups with my back, and it was just very painful. So I went to the DAV. The DAV got me up to 60%, and that was helpful a little bit.
And for those that don't know what the DAV is, that's for the stands for Disabled American Veterans.
Yes, and thank you, John. And I went to the DAV. They got me up to 60%, and I still continue to have problems, and on and on and on. Well, after I retired, my wife and I moved from Kansas City to Sierra Vista. I love it here. 2015. And I went back to the DAV one day. I was in the Civil Air Patrol. When I moved here, I did have a pilot's license, and I joined the Civil Air Patrol, which is open to anybody. You don't have to be a veteran. Civil Air Patrol is a volunteer group. It's the Air Force Auxiliary. They have airplanes. You get to fly. If you don't have a pilot's license, they train you to be an observer. They do Border Patrol missions. They do missions for the DEA. They do all kinds of things.
Do they do forestry service? Like they'll dump retardant on?
No, John. They do have. When I was in, they had a alert group, and I can't remember which it was, that they would call if they suspected, like after dry lightning had come in through an area or whatever, they would call and have the certain Civil Air Patrol groups would take their planes up and fly around the areas where they've been dry lightning. If they see any smoke, they would get the coordinates, and we actually had a radio that we could change the frequencies in it, and we could talk to the Forest Service. And they had some good communications equipment in those planes. They can talk to military, they can talk to civilian aircraft. Anyway, so I was in there for about 3 years, and my back, I couldn't do it. I wasn't flying with them, but I was an observer, and I couldn't spend the time in the plane. I couldn't spend time. It was just hard. And then they wanted me to do the communications. Whenever they had an exercise, you'd generally be there for 5 or 6 hours sitting in the comms room, and I couldn't do it. And so I went back to the DAV. I said, hey, I got to quit the Civil Air Patrol. I'm just in pain all the time. What are we going to do? And so they put me in for my back problem again. They upgraded it, and they put me in for unemployable, because obviously nobody's going to hire me if I can't sit or stand for very long. So thank you, Jesus. I did get the 100% through the DAV, and I've been like that ever since, but I still continue to have problems with my back. I've got a problem right now with the VA. I want to get offline here just a little bit, because that's pretty close to the end of that part of the story as I moved to Sierra Vista. But I've got problems with the VA right now, and I don't know if any of you have had this problem before. I just got through some major surgery. May the 16th, I had to have what they called Whipple surgery. And by the way, my voice doesn't sound like this normally. I've got a high-pitched voice since that surgery. But that's probably because of the anesthesia, and I was on an intubation tube for a while. Whipple, they open you up from your belly button up to your sternum. To not get too involved, they They end up cutting part of my pancreas out. They cut part of my stomach out, my upper intestines. Worked on my gallbladder, did some stuff, and rearranged some of my insides. And anyway, they found out the pancreas, it was not cancerous, so thank the Lord for that. But I was in extreme pain for quite a bit. I'm just now getting on my feet. Anyway, the problem I've had with the VA is I turned in claims for my travel pay. And I turned them in and they denied me because they were over 30 days old. I was never told that you had to turn your travel pay in before 30 days. And I had to get claims. I had to get a written notification from my doctor or a nurse that I actually made the appointments. So I had like 5 different appointments before I had my surgery. MRIs, lab work, on and on and on. And it was all up in Tucson. And I had that all done. Well, I went to the VA here in Sierra Vista, filled out my paperwork for the travel pay, and got the notifications, got all the letters together. They stapled them all in there, mailed it in, and I never got my pay. So I called them, and they looked it up, and they said, well, you're not going to get your pay because these are over 30 days old. Folks, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I was in my bed for 2 weeks. The only thing I could do is get up, barely get up, to go to the restroom. So there's a month right there. So I don't know how in the devil they expected me to get these travel pay things turned in 30 days. So I'm going to work on it next week. I'm going to call. If I have to go to the head of the VA in Tucson and tell him I think that's a bunch of BS, that they turn around and tell you after you've sent stuff in, you have to have them in within 30 days. There's nothing on the forms. I've never been counseled for that. So, and I told the people, I said, well, you're supposed to be helping veterans, not doing this kind of stuff to veterans. But anyway, we're otherwise, other than that, I've been okay with the VA. They've helped me, and I've had some major operations I had that they took care of. I had a heart attack years ago, and I had a triple bypass, all paid by VA. Robotic heart surgery to repair my messed up triple bypass, and they paid for that. So anyway, what else do you want to know about me, John?
So it's interesting, and thank you for all of that. That was actually very, very informative, and you're actually helping kind of explain exactly how you were able to increase your disability payments, because a lot of folks don't understand that the VA will try to turn you around,
Yes.
turn you down, try to discourage you from continuing to try.
Yes. Don't give up. Don't give up.
Yep, do not give up. Keep on fighting for what you know that you know what you're entitled to, what you need, because if you can't work, you can't just sit there and not be able to make it through life with no financial way of, so you got to go out there and try to just continue to fight for your VA disability benefits.
Become a squeaky wheel.
Become a squeaky wheel.
Yes, and when they get tired of hearing, maybe sooner or later they'll say, well, maybe this guy's got a point, and they'll look at it, boom. But that's the way I look at it. And I've talked to many veterans that have gotten an increase in their benefits, and they all say the same thing. First time I went in, the VA said, no, we're not going to do anything for you, or we'll give you 20%. Or, yeah, maybe we'll look at it later, but right now you're not going to get anything. No, don't give up. If you actually have a legitimate claim, now here's the thing that'll help you. Get your medical records, and if you show positively where you've had a problem, like in my case, I showed them April of 1985. It shows where I went to medical. I had information on there that I told medical what happened to me about trying to hold that big transmitter, and I had problems. Anyway, I had everything there. That's what you need. You got to have verified medical, and in some cases for PTSD, like you may have a buddy, a shipmate if you're in the Navy or whatever, that went through the same thing you did, and maybe you can help each other. Give the time, the dates, what you did, you saw this, you did this, and that will help you. but you got to have things. Just make sure you get everything all lined up and go to it, and don't give up. Just keep going, and that's all I got to tell you.
Thanks, Bob. And so my father is a Vietnam veteran. He's 72 years old. He was on the Forrestal CV-59 back in Vietnam from 72 to 75, so the tail end of Vietnam. So my father, I was talking to him, and he's trying to get his DD-214, and everything's probably been up in the attic since the day he moved into that house back in 1977-78, right before I was born. Same house, everything, back in Norfolk, Virginia. So my father, he's trying to get his DD-214. However, for veterans that you cannot locate your DD-214, you can go, for one, the National Archives, Washington D.C. They're online, nationalarchives.org, I believe. You can look up them, or you can go to your local veteran cemetery. But there's people at these veteran cemeteries. You give them your social security number, they should be able, 9 times out of 10, should be able to locate your DD-214 and have it for you mailed out or whatever. So that's your first stop. If you can't find your DD-214, make sure you definitely go see somebody at the National Archives, write them online, or go see somebody at the veteran cemetery to give them your social and have them track down your DD-214 for you. So, like my father, he just, it's been years, he hasn't really found any of this stuff, he hasn't really looked at it in a while, he's been working, his butt off his whole life after the Navy, so I'm going to help my father out. And here in Sierra Vista, over at the Veteran Cemetery next to Fort Huachuca, there's a man named Joe Larson. I believe his first name is Joe, last name Larson. He works at the Veteran Cemetery, and I was notified that I could go to him to look for my dad's DD-214. I had my father's social security number. I could do that. So, yeah, there's outlets and resources out here in town in Sierra Vista, especially because we're such a big veteran community, to help you track down your paperwork.
That's good to know. I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. That's good to know. Well, a lot of the records, if some of you know, a lot of the records for military were destroyed in a fire in St. Louis, Missouri, and I can't remember what year that was, but they had all the records for the military were in this building that caught on fire in Record Center, and obviously that does create a problem. But yes, and I'm not sure, but I believe your father, if he was on board the USS Forrestal during those years, he may possibly be eligible for PTSD on that count, because they had a serious fire on board the USS Forrestal. On the flight deck, I forget how many sailors died. A lot of sailors died, and
like 120.
Yeah, there was over 100 sailors died, and a lot of them were injured badly. And John McCain,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, he was one of the pilots that was on board the flight deck. He was actually getting ready to take off, and some people say he shot it, but no, I've heard he did not shoot a Zumi rocket. A Zumi rocket was somehow, it was made charged, and it's not supposed to be armed while they were on flight deck, and it shot clear across the flight deck and hit one of the planes and blew up. And John McCain, there is videos, he actually jumped out of his plane and ran away from the fire, and you could see sailors running with fire hoses and fire extinguishers towards the flames to get the pilot that was on this other plane.
Right.
And those sailors were vaporized. There was a big bomb went off, and it just vaporized those sailors, and it went down into the flight deck, and it started fires in the other planes down below in the hangars. And there was a lot of guys were trapped in their berthing areas, and they couldn't get out, and it was terrible. So that was a nightmare. So yes.
Yeah, my grandfather, he was a World War II, Navy and Korea and all that stuff, and he was at Pearl Harbor when that actually happened. He got shot twice, I guess from an airplane or whatever, but the ironic thing is my grandfather was from West Virginia, and he was on the USS West Virginia battleship. He as an MP at Pearl Harbor, and the USS West Virginia, I believe, was sank. So, but my grandfather, he passed away in I think 2006, 2007. But he had some stories to say.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, it was interesting. And but yeah, for folks that have never seen that video of the USS Forrestal, it's on YouTube. It's I mean, viewer discretion advised. You know, I mean, it's pretty sad, but it's also quite heroic watching the sailors going over there trying to help their comrades. But it's really sad. And yeah, it was. A lot of people think that John McCain, it was his Phantom II or whatever fighter jet, but apparently it wasn't. Because I used to believe that as well. I did some more research on it. It wasn't John McCain's plane. It was some other plane. I don't know how it got set off. Maybe it could have been anything. Who knows? You know, some disgruntled sailor set it off. I mean, who knows? Or it just could have been an accident. You know, but unfortunately, you know, a lot of deaths. Over 120 sailors, I believe, were killed that day. And it was what, in I think the late 60s, 67, 68. It was like during the height of the Vietnam.
Okay, it might have been before your dad got on board.
Yeah.
But that did change the way that they did things on the Navy firefighting. And they went and got AFFF foam. That was something the Navy came up with. That's the foam now they're talking about causes cancer. But, and there again, if you were a firefighter in the Navy or anything and you were around AFFF foam, which they still use at the major airports, but just for firefighting, not for training, they stopped that because they found out it can cause cancer. So if you were anywhere around the AFFF foam and you have any kind of cancers, you need to contact. There's different ones to do it. Probably look it up, Google it, AFFF foam cancer or whatever, and you'll find out that you're probably eligible for some money. But yeah, the Navy came up with AFFF foam after that. Before that, they used to use a foam that was made out of, believe it or not, horse blood. It was what they call a protein foam. And when I went in the fire service at first, when I was a volunteer fireman, right after high school, before I went in the Navy, we used to use that protein foam, and oh, did it stink. It was nasty. But it didn't work as good as the AFFF foam, so that's why they did away with it. So
I'm looking at it right now. So it's so AFFF foam, it stands for aqueous film forming foam. So, and if you believe you're exposed to any of this and you want to contact somebody in regards to seeing if you can get some kind of compensation for this. So you have Greenberg and Betterman, and their phone number is 1-888-252-4480. Let's say again, it's Greenberg and Betterman, BEDERN, 1-888-252-4480. And you can also contact Sokolov Law. So SOKOLOVE, Sokolov Law, and their phone number is 1-800-995-1212. 1-800-995-1212, and they should be able to help you out regarding that if you believe you were exposed to the AFFF foam. All right.
And again, probably, and there's all services, all branches of the service have AFFF foam for their airfields, and sometimes the training, if you go through firefighting training and different branches of the military. I know the Marines, the Navy, and the Air Force. I believe the Army does have some MOS as firefighters or whatever. But anyway, if you go through any of that type of training and you've been exposed to that, like John said, those are the numbers to call. But if you do have any types of cancer and you were exposed to that AFFF in the military, I wouldn't hesitate to go to one of the service groups, DAV, VFW, American Legion, or whatever, and say, hey, I've got this type of cancer and I was around this AFFF. I need to put in disability through the VA. And you can work it that way also. Probably get both. Anyway, that's just my thinking.
Yeah, and also for people that aren't aware of, well, obviously this is a Warrior Healing Center podcast. So So yes, definitely go to the VFW. Go to what's it, DAV, Disabled American Veterans. American Legion could probably point you in the right way, in the right direction. I'm not sure too much about American Legion.
Yeah, they do have service officers.
Yeah, so they got service officers here at the Warrior Healing Center. We also have we have meetings. We have PTSD groups where everybody talks about what causes their PTSD or what caused it, and everybody kind of. I've been to one of these. It was on a Saturday at 9:30. They have these every Saturday at 9:30 here at the Warrior Healing Center, located in Sierra Vista, Arizona. And just come in, talk, meet some new friends. It's actually really interesting. I learned a lot. It's of all ages. When I went to it, because I suffer from PTSD, depression, and anxiety as well, on meds and all that. So I don't like pills, so it is actually nice to come and talk to somebody. But yeah, you got everybody from Vietnam. Every once in a while, you probably get somebody from World War II, but unfortunately, the greatest generation, they're all dying out now. There's not many left of them.
Korean War.
Desert Storm, Global War on Terrorism, Panama, Kosovo. I mean, whatever, right? Like, there's all people from all walks of life that come in here from every single campaign you can think of.
And every branch too.
Every branch. And so, like, I've befriended a man who is in the Marines. He's a Marine, and he was awesome, man. And he had some stories, and we all kind of sat there and just talked.
Yeah, you got to remember, don't say he was a Marine.
Yeah, he is a Marine.
They will remind you of that.
Yeah, once a Marine, always a Marine. I was in the Army, so I don't know, people like to call us, what am I, my Army guy, but I just, but technically it's soldier, right? So, and then in the Navy, you got your sailors. Now we got the Space Force. They're called Guardians, I believe. So, shoot.
Oh, there's supposed to be something about the Space Force is going to have a unit in Fort Huachuca, I heard.
Yep, Fort Huachuca. So they're actually planning on, well, they're in talks. I'm not sure how far the talks have gone, but they are talking about maybe commissioning a Space Force unit on Fort Huachuca.
That'll be cool.
That will be cool.
And I understand there's supposed to be a rocket or missile or something company that's building. They're going to build some kind of rocket here in Sierra Vista. Have you heard that?
I haven't heard.
I think they broke ground on it. It's supposed to be somewhere. I think it's somebody said it was out by Cochise College and University of Arizona Satellite Camp. Anyway, somewhere up in that area.
On Colombo Avenue?
Yeah, they're going to build some kind of a factory building, and they're going to be able to build rockets there. So.
Wow. So it's going to be like a bunch of people just making rockets in a factory.
Yeah. Let's just hope they know how to make them safely.
Exactly. Well, anyway, we're going to go ahead and conclude this podcast. I'll try to keep these no longer than 30 minutes to 45. And we'll see how it goes. So this is my first day doing this, and I think this actually went quite smoothly. So next time, I'm going to go ahead and make sure there's two cameras. It's going to show me, show our guests, and everything. We're going to be, it's going to be kind of like the Joe Rogan experience. That's what I'm trying to get here. But it's going to be the Warrior Healing experience.
The John Rogan.
The John Rogan and the Warrior Healing experience for veterans and everybody else that suffers PTSD or.
John, before you get off, do you have the address here?
Yes, the address here, I believe, is 1383 Paseo San Luis Road in Sierra Vista, Arizona.
Right down from the racquetball center and the fire station.
Yep, and we are also right behind Doc's watering hole.
Well, that makes it handy.
Yes, I mean, say a lot of people go to Doc's watering hole. I go over there and get a beer. Like, oh, I'm going to go to the Warrior Healing Center today.
And those are veterans that own Doc's watering hole. Remember that.
Yep, my buddy Aaron. He's a retired officer in the Army, and he opened up Doc's watering hole, and he is a wonderful guy. And that is a very family-friendly. We call them honky tonks out here in the West. Back where I'm at from the East Coast, we call them taverns.
You don't have to drink. They do have good food there.
Yeah, they have excellent food. And I had a coffee last night, actually. But then, I had a beer as well. So, but their food is excellent. They have great bands. My friend Curtis Legnon, who's also in the military, he's a first sergeant. He's in a band, and he is an excellent musician. And he was playing last night, and it was wonderful. So, all right. With that said, I'd like to thank Mr. What's your last name, Bob?
Carlson.
Bob Carlson for joining us today on the Warrior Healing Center podcast. And I'm going to try to continue these every Saturday. if possible. I also do have other things that I'm working on. I'm a retired soldier, so I am looking at finding another career. And I also absolutely love doing this for our veterans as a volunteer service. I love doing this. And veterans need to have their voice heard because there's just not enough of it. What do they say? 1% of us serve and about 17% of us retire out of that 1%. So that we're a very small group and a very small family that needs to have a big voice. So with that said, I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and thank you again, Bob, for joining us today. And that was some great information. All right, everybody, God bless. Bye-bye.